doing things. Here we are. Cool. All right, Sandra, we live? We made it. All right. Round of applause for Sandro. Yeah, you did it. Okay, cool. First of all, it's very exciting. It's our first time in Santa Clara and this far down the peninsula. It goes on for a long way. There's a lot of traffic. That was interesting, right? It's the first time. Cool. Well, today is a really exciting event for us. Oh, we need a clicker. Where's our clicker? Yes. So really quick, a couple things I want to, gotta hold it. Did that work? Yes. Oh, back one. Nice. Quick thank you to our sponsors. So as I'm sure you know, we have a bunch of research tools companies that support us financially, make sure we can do all these things. So if you're looking for research software, this is where you start, this is where you end. Yay, thank you. Big shout out. Yeah, all right. And then I want to thank, of course, our very important host. Now, before I hand the mic off to Anand, who's going to be our MC for today, really quick introduction for why we think this series in general is super important. I mean, for a long time, there's been a lot of focus on companies like, let's say, Google and Meta, who have been doing all this consumer stuff and whatnot. And then just in the background, quietly, there's been these great B2B businesses that have been building incredible products, scaling, and especially in times like these, are still growing and doing successful research. And it's really important for us to not look through research so narrowly as it's just like optimizing search page results and like onboarding for like social platforms. And so there's a ton of amazing, incredible challenges that are being worked on at companies like ServiceNow. And so we're super excited. This is our second installment of our Enterprise UXR series that we're doing in partnership with ServiceNow. So we're very excited about this. And today, as you all know, we're talking about business strategy. So with that, I want to introduce our MC. Give me 1 second. He has a very illustrious career. Hi, Anand. I'm going to tell everybody what he's been up to. So Anand is the Vice President and Global Head of UX Research for Insights at ServiceNow, and a position he's been in since August of 2022. His background is in senior leadership roles at companies like Meta, Accenture, ANGI, and Honeywell. Brings a wealth of experience in shipping cutting-edge products that impact human lives across diverse sectors, including safety-critical industries like process controls and operations. That sounds relevant to like this ServiceNow stuff. That's great. He's prepared for this. He was ready for this job. In addition to home services, marketplaces, and social media, Anand is a published author. By the way, if you haven't seen the resource that ServiceNow just published, what's it called? HCAI. There's a human-centered AI guidelines that ServiceNow's design and research team have just put out 2 weeks ago. Go read it if you haven't. We've already have some critical acclaim from some folks in the audience. So that's very exciting. And his contributions have not only driven industry standards, but have also paved the way for transformative user-centric solutions. He's got a PhD, Human factors from Texas Tech, and an MBA from Kellogg at Northwestern. And he's also an avid tennis enthusiast. Remind me not to play you, that will go bad for me. And finds joy in exploring various genres of music. So please give it up for your MC for today, Anand. So just remember to hold it right here.
Hold it like this?
Yeah. All right. Just don't cover that mic part.
All good? Welcome to ServiceNow, folks. Excited to host this event, and apologies for the delay, always some technical difficulties. But we'll make it up with the amazing content we have, not only from the speakers. We're going to hear from Michelle and Warren, but then we have an amazing set of panelists. I'm excited to learn from the three of them, so I'm hopeful that you'll learn and walk away with a lot of good information. I'm going to cut my intro really short so that we stay on time, but I'm excited about today. Thank you for coming in, for folks who drove in. It's a beautiful day outside, so hopefully it wasn't that bad of a drive-in. And at ServiceNow, folks who don't know us, we are cracking it. We are doing a lot of work. We are expanding. A little bit of a shameless plug here. But as a UX research organization, we're doing some wonderful things across the board. And even after the sessions today, feel free to talk to some of us. We have a few ServiceNow folks here, both from design and research and product management. So feel free to chat with all of us. And we're continuing to expand and doing some wonderful things. Not only about Gen AI, which Alec mentioned, we had an ACI guidelines that we just published 2 weeks ago, so go take a look at it. It's an amazing set of materials there. And before I forget, Alec and Learner's team, thank you so much for co-hosting this event. Please, round of applause. All right, so let's get to it. I'm going to introduce Michelle and Warren, who are going to be our first set of presenters, and then we're going to take a quick break. and then we'll get to the panel that I'll moderate. And I'll introduce the panelists at that time. So first, Michelle's going to go. I'm going to introduce Michelle here. Michelle Takamoto is a senior manager of UX research at ServiceNow, where she leads a team that supports technology products for IT service management, what we call ITSM, and strategic portfolio management, we call SPM. With a wealth of expertise in human behavior and research methods from both academic and industry settings, Michelle is a trailblazer in crafting meaningful insights that inform unparalleled user experiences. Celebrating nearly half a decade with ServiceNow. Congratulations, Michelle. Michelle thrives on tackling intricate challenges, collaborating deeply with cross-functional stakeholders, and seamlessly connecting the dots across the enterprise to unlock customer value and drive excellence for users. Thank you, Michelle, for showing up today. And then Warren Davis, who's going to be our next speaker. With over 9 years of experience in research and product strategy spanning both B2B, B2C, and academic spaces, Dr. Warren M. Davis specializes in gathering and disseminating insights pivotal for informed design and product decisions. Consistently striving to be a detail-oriented thought leader, Warren has prioritized nurturing relationships with cross-functional partners to learn, thereby elevating the role of research as a strategic asset within product development. Committed to fostering an inclusive environment, Warren is currently supporting the Platform Admin Research Group at ServiceNow, where he prioritizes enabling his research peers. Through the immense efforts of the Platform Admin researchers, the team has collaborated seamlessly to craft user-centric product narratives that capture behaviors and needs effectively. Warren Davis for all of you. All right, so let's talk enterprise strategy and impact. Michelle, take it on.
All right. It's very particular on the microphone, so I'm going to try and do it correctly. Is my volume okay online? All right. All right. Thank you all so much. I'm so excited to be here and privileged to have the honor to speak with you all. I think one of the really exciting things when we had the opportunity to give this talk was there's a lot of things that you can learn very quickly when you join an enterprise research company, and I think that's been part of what we hope to cover today is how we've uncovered some of these insights and gathered some information that we want to share more broadly. And so with that, oh, there we go. Aha. Ooh. It's a finicky clicker. Awesome. So today what we're going to start with is we'll start with a customer story. I think all of us here are invested in users, and so what better way to navigate the talk than to ground ourselves in a customer. We'll understand our customers and our users and some of the difference between those two things, why user feedback is important, and then Warren will go ahead and walk us through 3 steps towards strategy. And so let's go ahead and talk through an example. Ironically, when I was thinking about this talk, I'm used to giving presentations on Zoom. We've all moved into remote, and more often than not, anytime I'm doing anything, it's over my computer. And one of the things you may not know is that the Zoom customer support portal was actually built on the ServiceNow platform. It's something that's very exciting for me being an employee at ServiceNow, as I get to tell fun facts to my family about customers that they may not know are ServiceNow, and I'd be like, ha, that's built on our platform. That's the company I work for. But that's one of the biggest benefit of ServiceNow is that we give our customers the power to white label and create an experience that they want for their end users. And to do that, they have a team working on the back end using all of our technology to create this user experience for their end users. So with that means that our job as researchers becomes a little bit more layered because we need to ensure that we're talking to the right person across the enterprise. And so who is the customer at Zoom? Well, it depends on who you ask, right? So if I was to go to CJ Desai, who is our president and chief operating officer, his customer is the CIO, the chief information officer, the person who has the funding to choose ServiceNow across any of the other platforms that they're deciding between. If I was to talk to our sales or our customer outcomes teams, that's the platform owner. That's the next level down. That's the person who's actually making decisions on what's next with ServiceNow. All the new Gen AI capabilities. That platform owner is trying to decide whether or not that's something they can administer on the platform for their company. But, as all of you are familiar with, the customer does not always equal the user. And this is something that when you're working with cross-functional stakeholders, sometimes this is a different conversation, and you have to figure out how to navigate that to tell your product stakeholders that we need to be targeting a specific user. We want to make sure that we're building the product with the user in mind, so we need to be very specific when we're talking about who we're trying to reach in the enterprise. And so when we think about administration, the user there is an admin. It's a person who's pretty tech savvy. They're the ones that are building workflows in Flow Designer. They know about business rules and scripting because they're putting out these amazing user interfaces, but they're a much more technically savvy person. And the products they use on ServiceNow are very different than if we were to talk to a different user. This could also be a release manager. This is somebody who might be coordinating when an upgrade's coming. They need to make sure that whatever code they're pushing out isn't going to break something, because that never ends well. You don't want to have a down service. It's not a good situation. Versus when we start to move into development, so this is actually building applications on the ServiceNow platform. That's one of the biggest benefits that we have, is we have a very flexible, powerful platform that our customers can leverage in multiple different ways. And so for these folks, an architect or a developer, they're using a different set of tools. So again, if you're in that space, you want to make sure that you're talking to the right persona. And then finally, all of this is in service of who the people are that are using our tools for their end job. So this is our agent persona, our CSM persona. So when you get on the call with Zoom saying, hey, I have an outage, something's not working, the CSM agent is working on the back end in our ServiceNow configured solution, trying to triage that fix for you as quick as they can, because that's how they're measured, is they want to be as fast and productive as possible. Similarly, there's an IT agent for anyone who's ever got locked out of your computer. Maybe you forgot your password. Done it before. If you get on a call with an IT agent, similar workflow, but a different scenario. Maybe an IT agent has a different service level agreement compared to a customer service agent who's trying to triage things quickly to maintain the status of their brand. So again, just being very specific on who you're trying to speak with and making sure that you have your stakeholders bought in on who you're targeting for your specific outcomes. And to add the final layer of complexity for our role in an enterprise is all of this is in service of an employee or a customer. So again, when I started the story, some of you may have actually visited the Zoom portal and didn't realize that ServiceNow was the functionality that was powering that platform on the back end. For anyone who's visited maybe an employee portal, again, configured by a ServiceNow admin or developer, you may not recognize that ServiceNow is the solution that's driving that workflow for you. And so it's a really interesting dynamic of us having to navigate the various layers and levels of users across the enterprise to make sure that we're always putting the user at the center of whatever we're doing. So the customer ecosystem at Zoom, I spoke through a lot of different people. So that might be a well-resourced team. That might be a team that has a big investment in ServiceNow, and they have all of these different players that are handling different roles, different jobs, different responsibilities. Again, maybe using our IT, our CSM, those different workflows, versus potentially thinking through a smaller customer, somebody who's a little bit more narrow. And why do we care about that user feedback? Why is it so important for us to focus on that? When we compare, these different roles have different jobs or different ways of working that they're engaging within the platform. So as I mentioned, that platform owner, they're leading the platform strategy, vision, and roadmap. Again, they're forecasting. They're planning out, okay, I have a set budget. How am I going to use those resources? I'm making decisions between, do I enhance with Gen AI or do I invest in a different area of opportunity? They're maximizing the use of the platform capabilities. They need to show their value, their ROI to their investors, to that CIO who's actually in charge of determining what is the resources going forward. They're coordinating with architects, developers, business owners to ensure that they're delivering the new capabilities. They have to coordinate with that team. If they are planning an upgrade, they need to have visibility into what's coming. Versus the IT agent, again, very different way of working. IT agents are receiving, reviewing, and gathering information as quickly as possible. They want to get to ticket to ticket to ticket to be as quick and efficient as they can. They're resolving those employee cases in a timely fashion based on, again, those service level agreements. They're documenting solutions, processes, and workarounds, so maybe putting together a solution in a knowledge base article that they then publish on the portal so that You don't even have to go to an agent, you can just self-solve. So again, very different levels and very different ways of working. So it's important for us to articulate that to our product stakeholders so that when we're building with that in mind. And one of the big opportunities within an enterprise is that patterns of work exist. And you can start to see, okay, even though they might be different, there may be some overlap between certain personas that we should try to maximize so that that user who's traversing across the platform doesn't feel like they're using different solutions when they jump from a flow designer to an administration tool, because that's one of their roles. One of their responsibilities is around administration, so we need to build with a cohesive pattern in mind. And so as I mentioned, it's really important for us to be advocates. We are the ones that are closest to the user, and we need to be the voice of that user in any opportunity that we can. Elevate that to our product stakeholders so that we know that we're always designing with that user in mind. We want to deliver those product experiences that solve for the bulk of user needs. So again, thinking about the majority as much as we can instead of those niche potential one-off use cases. And if we only focus on those well-resourced teams, like the ones that I mentioned from Zoom that had a pretty big team, we may start doing some siloing or creating things based on a specific person as opposed to identifying those patterns that exist across the enterprise. So we want to make sure that we're always thinking about how we might reach a variety or a spectrum of customers and different user bases so that we can be holistic in our approach. And again, different types of users have very different jobs, but if we can start to identify patterns, that makes us even more powerful in the way that we deliver those experiences. And so I did want to contrast the Zoom team with one other type of customer. This is, again, a very typical situation is a smaller team. This is Levi Strauss, another customer of ours, and their ServiceNow platform team has about 4 people on the team. So as you can imagine, all of those roles that I mentioned in the Zoom ecosystem exist here. So these jobs still persist, but that means that somebody is playing the role of those other responsibilities. So this is where, again, you can start to really maximize those patterns and build for a job or a way of working in the enterprise experience. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Warren to talk us through the 3 steps towards strategy.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's do this. Good evening, everybody. It's so great to see your smiling faces. It's very rare that I get to hold a microphone in my hand and have an audience in front of me. This must be what Beyonce feels like. And I see why she loves this so much. Now, I will say there are some latency issues potentially with the slides. I put a lot of build into the deck. And so if I'm speaking and you don't see it up there, be patient, it's gonna come. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and kick it off. So, obviously, the goal of this evening is to talk about enterprise UX research, and more specifically, research and strategy within the enterprise, right? And anyone who functions as a researcher at an enterprise software company, or really anybody who functions as a researcher at all, has at some point probably heard their leadership say, I want research to serve a strategic function in the business, or I want our research to be strategic thought partners, helping to guide our product decisions and vision for the future, right? And all of those things are great. That's incredible. I think first and foremost, it showcases our ability to empathize with our users and advocate for their needs. And I think it also showcases our unique ability to dramatically influence product roadmaps through the insights that we elevate and communicate. The problem at times, though, is that we don't always do a great job of communicating to individuals how to become a strategic partner in the business, right? How to become that idealized researcher. I, by no means, am an expert. That's why we've assembled a panel of experts to talk about that. However, I intend to elucidate my thoughts on a 3-step strategy I developed for myself when I first entered into the space to begin to change and shift my mindset, to be more strategic in my thought process and how I approached my research. So without further ado, let's see if this clicker will work, and let's start it off. Did you see how long that took? Be patient. All right, so we have the 3 steps towards strategy in the enterprise. Now, this slide is intended to just give you a brief overview of what we're going to discuss in my short time today, and I want to kick us off by talking through some foundational stuff. This is the baseline for everybody entering into the enterprise space, and that is operational insight or operational knowledge. So when I'm talking about operational things, that's your day-to-day. What are you doing on a daily basis to accrue knowledge? What are you doing on a daily basis to leverage the resources available to you? When I say resources, I mean the human beings that you work with, The unique thing about enterprise research is we have access to so many subject matter experts that are uniquely positioned to educate one another on the needs of our customers, right? And so as we're thinking about that and trying to understand the product space, the competitive landscape, our users, and the push and pull between all of those things, it's important to understand and develop your knowledge network. That wasn't supposed to pop up yet, it was the clicker. So as we're thinking about knowledge networks, it's important to establish connections across the organization to enhance your business knowledge and ensure your research initiatives are appropriately scoped to provide maximum benefit and maximum value. The key takeaway here is we want to develop a holistic point of view for our research. It shouldn't just consider our design counterparts, which it always should. It shouldn't just consider our product counterparts or engineering counterparts, which it always should. It should consider everything that goes into making a product successful, as well as what occurs with our go-to-market strategy and once it's been implemented. Now, the next step is tactical insight or tactical knowledge. And I consider this to be that intermediate range, that mid-range for us. Now, as we're thinking about tactical knowledge, right, you've taken the steps to lay that foundation, you've done the groundwork, establishing your POV, establishing a basic knowledge of the enterprise industry. But now you're gonna dive deep and really focus on the business unit you're responsible for supporting with your research. So the specific product you're researching for or the portfolio of products that you're accountable for. And as we're thinking about this portfolio, the core question is always, what's the use case? We're going to emphasize this a few times, and I'll educate you all in a little bit on why use cases are so important. So when I say what's the use case, this is what I mean. You want to identify the business requirements of our customers to ensure we're providing optimized solutions that will address current pain points and streamline workflows. If we can accurately describe the use case, if we can accurately describe business models, then we can pinpoint the value proposition of our products and understand when to pitch a solution to a customer to help them achieve their goals. If we can't do that, we're just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, and that is not a good approach. That's not a successful business. Now, the final step is strategic insight or strategic knowledge. So again, you've laid that foundation, you've built out your knowledge network, your peers who have educated you on what's going on in the space. You've also done the work to really investigate and understand your specific product space, the people that you're accountable to in terms of driving product outcomes. And now you're looking across the organization. And what do I mean by that? You're investigating micro-offering connectivity. Now, that's a wordy term. In short, it means how does product A meet the need of a customer, and what needs might those additionally create? And how might there be another product across the organization that can address those additional needs? And how do those two things come together seamlessly to create that UX? Did you see that delay? So again, here, we're looking to highlight the interconnectedness of our platform capabilities across business units to better predict a customer's needs and create that seamless UX. So again, we're thinking strategically. First, we started off by laying that foundation, then we dove into our specific business unit, then we decided to zoom out and look across the enterprise or our organization to understand how does one product connect to another to really enhance outcomes for our customers. I see people taking pictures, it's gonna make me cry. Thank you so much. Okie dokie. So, again, going back to step one, that is gaining knowledge and context, engaging internal subject matter experts. Again, this is that operational insight that we're striving for. What does a knowledge network look like in the enterprise? I am so happy that you asked me that question. Now, what I'm about to show you is by no means an exhaustive list of all the people that you can partner with within the enterprise. However, it is a list that's intended to show the people that I connected with when I first engaged with Michelle's team for platform security to learn about the space. It was a highly technical space, something that I had never done before, and I needed to learn quickly, and these are the people who helped me to do just that. So first you have the outbound product manager. This individual differs from your typical inbound product manager in that they focus on taking a product to market and driving its growth by supporting sales execution with a focus on multi-customer activities. The next individual is the solution consultant, some of my favorite people in the world, let me tell you. They maintain in-depth technical knowledge of a product space that helps a business to overcome issues, increase sales, and connect better with their customer base. So we have this two-sided coin, two-sided coin I like to think of as it pertains to solutions. You have the solution consultants, and on the other side of that coin, you have solution architects. It came in. Now, these solution architects support the customer in defining business requirements to determine how the software will operate to solve a specific problem. And again, this example is specific to my experience on Michelle's team with platform security, so of course it wouldn't be complete unless I included some security-specific personas. So first we have the security advisor. Now, these individuals provide consulting support that enables a company to protect organizational assets, capital assets, and proprietary assets. They basically tell you, this is what you got to do to keep your stuff from leaking, guys. Now, you have your security analyst, and this is the individual that monitors an organization's networks to detect security breaches and investigate the root cause should one occur. Now, overall, again, this is not an exhaustive list of all the people that you would partner with. This is not an exhaustive list of all the various roles that exist within the enterprise who are subject matter experts. But the unique thing about each and every one of these individuals is, one, they have extreme knowledge of their technical space. They can educate you and get you up to speed so quickly, and trust me, they are always happy to talk about their profession and what they do. On top of that, the beautiful part about all of these roles is that in some capacity at our company, they're all customer facing. So what does that mean? That means that they have a pulse on the market. They know what our customers are experiencing on a daily basis. They know about their complaints, their wins, all these things that might take you years to accrue in terms of information, you can get in a matter of weeks by simply talking to your counterparts. That's the beauty of this. So what does this mean for the researcher? It means you need to build a knowledge network. If you're not networking, if you're not connecting with individuals, you're doing yourself and the organization a disservice. So much of our job is social. So much of our reality is socially constructed. And if we can understand that and harness that power, we can have an impact. So as it pertains to building a knowledge network, building relationships with SMEs enables you to gain critical knowledge of the customer, developing that comprehensive POV. Again, it's not just about design needs. It's not just about engineering or product needs. It's about the entire landscape and the opportunities that we can surface to our cross-functional partners to drive truly incredible outcomes. If it's a concept test, what else can we add into the mix to really make this valuable and meaningful to the entire team? Also, involving cross-functional partners early on empowers your stakeholders to see themselves in your research. Now, Warren, what does it mean for somebody to see themselves in your research? I don't know. No, I'm just playing. What it means is, when somebody's literally watching your research share out and they see you talking about something that you've communicated with them about previously, maybe it's a critical question that they need answered. Maybe it's something that they see on a recurring basis with customers, and you're highlighting that, they see how they've directly contributed to your research, and they see how they have made an impact not only on you, but on what our product team is going to do in the future. And that does two incredible things. One, it drives engagement in your presentation. The way that you all have been so graciously laughing at my terrible jokes, that's engagement. And people do that during my presentations all the time, and I'm so appreciative. On top of that, it creates buy-in, and that's what we really want. Because when we have research recommendations and we're able to drive buy-in or create buy-in by helping them to see themselves in the research, that heightens the chance or likelihood that our research will actually land and have an impact on future product strategy. And then finally, ensuring your research is holistically scoped prior to data collection will help you to create evergreen insights. Now, what are evergreen insights? The short term is they're insights with a long shelf life. In the enterprise space, it can be extremely difficult to recruit. I'm sad Avra's not here to speak to that, but she does an incredible job of helping our team out because, boy, it can be tough. We're looking for very specific individuals with very specific technical knowledge, as Michelle touched on. So if a project is taking weeks or even months to complete, why wouldn't we put our all into it to ensure a return on investment, making sure that individuals are coming back to our research on a consistent basis, using it as a single source of truth or North Star? That's evergreen work. I hope I'm doing okay on time. I'm talking a lot. Now, number two, again, is that tactical insight. Driving value for customers, what's the use case? So what happens when product use cases are unclear? Don't worry, don't take a guess. I'll tell you about it in just a moment. But in short, it's nothing good. It's nothing good. Now, here's a direct quote from one of the members of my knowledge network, a solution consultant here at ServiceNow. The customer was directed towards using a multi-instance approach, which would include creating thousands of instances and require administrative upkeep beyond their abilities. Nobody brought up domain separation because nobody really knew what DS could do. I see you laughing, Paul. Now, for the purposes of this presentation today, it's not important to know what domain separation is. Trust me, it's a very technical product. It took me a while to understand. What's important to focus on is this. Our core sellers, our account executives, our solution consultants, they pitched a suboptimal solution to a customer that was well beyond their realm of possibility or capability. And as a result, they missed out on a deal. And it was through no fault of their own. They didn't know that we had another product that could address their needs because they weren't aware of the use cases. They weren't aware of the value proposition. And if you have that blind spot, inherently, we're going to miss out on business. So continuing this conversation, this individual followed up with this statement. There we go. Someone who's new to their role as an account executive or a solution consultant, again, our core sellers, might have a hard time wrapping their head around why an MSP would need domain separation. We need to educate them. So what does that mean? That means people who are new to the space, who might not have the same technical background that somebody who's been at ServiceNow for 5 years might have, right, Michelle? They might struggle to understand our products, the use cases, their applicability, and when they should be pitching them to a customer to help them achieve idealized outcomes. That's, again, creating a blind spot. Saying we need to educate them really means research needs to educate them. We need to communicate use cases, value propositions to impact the business. So as I was engaging in research, this is one of the research questions that guided my inquiry. What criteria do ServiceNow core sellers, again, those account executives and solution consultants, use when evaluating a customer's needs? So in layman's terms, how do they figure out what the heck to pitch to these people when they're in the sales cycle? And here is a response to that. It should always be about the business model. I can't stress that enough. For example, corporations with thousands of franchises that all need data to securely flow to one centralized location probably need domain separation. Again, don't focus on what is domain separation. Focus on that top line highlight. It should always be about the business model. If we can determine the business model, we can determine the use case. Then we can determine the value proposition and understand the opportunities to improve the product or bring a new product to life. So what does this mean for the researcher? I hope you all are still with me. We're getting there, I promise. It means you need to define use cases, and this is your key tactical takeaway. So number one, outlining the user's business challenge creates a shared understanding of what the customer is trying to achieve. What is our value proposition? What are we addressing for them? How are we solutioning and solving their issues and entering into that opportunity space? Business use cases provide a lens through which your stakeholders can better visualize your insights. So that's your pain points, your unmet needs, your opportunity areas. If you're contextualizing and couching your findings in these terms, utilizing this framework, it helps them to better digest the material that you're conveying to them. And then finally, clarifying use cases will help teams to avoid pitching suboptimal or flawed solutions that often lead to damaged customer relationships and lost business. Specifically for this product, there were a multitude of occurrences where people had been pitched an opposite solution because nobody knew what domain separation was. They began to mature in their product lifecycle or business lifecycle, and they needed to go back to then install domain separation. Well, the issue was that wasn't enabled. It was a one option or one-time thing. If you either click to opt in or you don't click. And if you don't click, it's going to cost you a lot of money to go back and fix that problem. Our team was able to discuss that and optimize for that solution in terms of, one, including an installer for domain separation to help our existing customers, but again, ensuring that within our go-to-market strategy, where we're clearly communicating business use cases and value propositions, so our sales teams during sales cycles didn't miss out on these opportunities again. All right, and finally, again, strategic insight. And this is about creating a seamless UX through micro-offering connectivity. So to recap, we've talked about operational, your day-to-day. We've also talked about tactical and understanding how we can impact the bottom line of a company. Here, we're going to talk about how can we conjoin or make sure two things are flowing together seamlessly. So as we think about creating a seamless UX, you might recall at the beginning I said is basically how does product A and product B come together to create one seamless experience, accounting for an entire workflow for the customer. So we have micro offering number one, or application number one. And this is coming from the customer and industry workflows business vertical. So we have a customer, a large corporation with customers of their own they need to service. And in order to do that, they install customer service management. Now, I promise I'm not trying to sell you all any products right now. I'm about to explain what customer service management is, though. So with customer service management, you can automate your processes and establish real-time visibility into your customers' products and services, providing your service agents with an overview of the customer systems and tools they need to deliver proactive services. So essentially, we're helping to visualize customer data to these service agents so they can proactively account for requests that may come in, thereby cutting down on their ticketing, cutting down on the ticket response time, and making for a better experience for their customers, their end users. Now, you'll notice one of the key things that I brought up in this is visualizing customer data. And any time that you have data flowing into a space, it creates a vulnerability because that data is sensitive. So here's the problem that this creates. Sensitive information is now entering your production environment with no way for agents or admins to identify or protect that data. So while customer service management is optimizing the workflows of our customer success agents, it's also creating a vulnerability for that customer and the customers of theirs. So what can we do to address this? We can step out of our business unit, which is customer and industry workflows, or our workflow vertical, and look across the organization for a potential solution. And this is where Paul and his team comes in. This is where we pitch micro offering number two, coming from the business workflow of business vertical of creator workflows. And that is ServiceNow Vault. So you can utilize the ServiceNow Vault set of data security tools to protect sensitive information from unauthorized access, corruption, or theft throughout the data lifecycle. You can apply protections like encryption, secrets management, and data privacy for the redaction and auditing of sensitive information. It is not important for you to know what encryption is, what data privacy is, what the redaction or obfuscation of sensitive information is. What's important to understand is this. Our micro offering, or application number one, addressed the core customer need, which is providing timely and optimized service to their customers. But it also created a need because now we have sensitive information in our customer instance, our production instance. So what can we do to address that? We can look across the organization to find a solution that already exists. And that comes in the form of ServiceNow Vault. So pairing those two things together to account for that entire workflow is what micro-offering connectivity and a seamless UX is at its core. Last slide, I promise. What does this mean for the researcher? It means you have to connect the dots to foster collaboration. Let me speak to that a bit more. First, you need to dig deep to understand how a specific micro-offering is used to address a particular business requirement and how the user navigates that experience. So if you remember, that intermediate level was tactical knowledge, really diving deep into your business unit, your product portfolio to understand what you offer. That's where this comes into play. But after you've done that, you need to zoom out and gain that strategic insight. Here you're going to zoom out of that individual experience to create a clear narrative that supports how various capabilities come together to serve an entire use case. How does product A create a need? How does product B meet that need? How does product B meet that need? And how do we bring those two things together? And then finally, use your understanding of the customer needs one micro offering may create to drive cross-functional collaboration between teams and unify product strategy. Oftentimes in enterprise research, you'll hear a term. That term is teams are working in silos. That means one hand may not know what the other hand is doing, and that leads to ineffective outcomes for the business. That leads to duplicated efforts. That leads to products and applications that do not work together. We can't have that. So as researchers, it's our responsibility to not only impact the bottom line by communicating very simple use cases, but also to drive collaboration in an inclusive environment amongst teams by surfacing the opportunities for our applications and products to come together. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Okay, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to set up for the panel, and we'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, so turn to your left, turn to your right, shake a hand, make a new friend, have fun, something like that, okay? We'll be back in 2 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Warren and Michelle, for that amazing set of presentations. So next we're going to have a set of conversations with our amazing panelists. Before we dive in, I want to make sure I introduce these esteemed individuals here, really, really strong. So I'll start with Kirsten, our own Kirsten Loitering from ServiceNow. So a little bit about Kirsten. She joined ServiceNow in 2022 as Vice President of Product Management, bringing more than 25 years of experience in procurement and supply chain solutions across various industries, business models, and global regions. With a significant portion of her career dedicated to roles at SAP and SAP Ariba, she spearheaded the development of solutions for Fortune 500 clients, navigating both on-prem and cloud environments. At present, Kirsten leads the finance and supply chain workflow product management team at ServiceNow, building a new workflow business for ServiceNow. Welcome.
Thank you.
Next, we have Nathan Kendrick. Nathan's design career spans 25 years with skills pressure tested inside companies as a small business owner and as a consultant. His areas of expertise is design for B2B and SaaS across industries of IT, healthcare, and more. Nathan co-founded and led a UX consultancy for 15 years, leading them to a high of 45 FTEs and 35% margin. That's pretty good, man. That's awesome. Nathan led design of the industry's first web-based email, calendar, and forms at Netscape and AOL. He established Cisco's design guidelines for all public websites and cloud apps between 2005 and 2010. Nathan designed the award-winning Loud Cloud EDS Code deployment app founded by Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz. Currently, he helps Fortune 500 companies find efficiencies through Gen AI and envision bold growth opportunities. His most meaningful experiences come from collaborating with multidisciplinary teams, mentoring and building design abilities within his own teams and client organizations. He holds a BFA degree in graphic design from the Rhode Island School of Design. Connect with Nathan to nerd over espresso, hot and cold therapy, or anything Enneagram. He's a number 8, by the way. I'm a huge Enneagram.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So that covers our product management and design panelists. We come to research. Sri Patribu. For over 2 decades, Sri has been at the forehead of product innovation, leveraging collaborative research to redefine user experiences. Currently serving as the head of research at Circle, a leading stablecoin and Web3-based services company, Sri is setting up research to define a new internet financial system. Before joining Circle, Sri's journey traversed diverse domains. To name a few, built creator economies, empowered homeowners with innovative maintenance solutions, revolutionized in-car entertainment for children, and provided cardiologists with intuitive patient care tools. With an impressive portfolio covering over 25 patents in technology and product design, Sri's impact extends beyond conventional boundaries. His visionary work was recognized with the prestigious Red Dot Award at CES Product Innovation. Outside of work, Sri spends time with his family going on hikes, traveling, and experimenting with gluten-free recipes. Welcome, Sri. All right, let that sink in for a while. So thank you for showing up. And we have, the important thing to know about this panel is we got product management, design, and research. So hopefully the conversations is going to span across those 3 domains. So today, we're going to talk about enterprise impact and strategy. First question, define impact in your own words in enterprise.
Should I go first?
Go first. Yeah.
All right. Can everybody hear me in the back? Good? All right. When I think about impact, early on I thought about it in one way. I think now I think about it totally differently. One, there's organization impact that we all know, right? This goes into OKRs. This goes into conversations that we have with our managers on how we've responded to product situations, and then, so on and so forth. The other piece I started thinking more recently, maybe in the last 5 years or so, is about personal impact. Right? What is my growth look like given what I'm doing within the organization? And if both the business impact that I'm driving and the personal impact are in sync, I'm in a good place. That's how I think about impact. And it helps me in a lot of different ways, not only just just drive businesses, but also where I want to go in my career.
Great answer. Thanks, Reed. Kirsten.
Yeah, I would echo that. As a product leader, the biggest impact I can have for my own company here at ServiceNow, as well as for my customers, is to ideate, build, and deliver impactful product, right? An impactful product is when my product is being adopted across my customer base widely, but also deeply into an organization. When I make my product really that great, that it's sticky, that customers are getting really usage and value out of it, so that my company gets the revenue, the renewals, the uplift from that. That's something that from a product leader perspective I would define as impact, but I would agree with you. There's a personal impact, and I think as we're progressing in our careers, that becomes more and more important, that you're not chasing a lot of things anymore, but you really want to influence and take the knowledge that you've acquired and put it into something really good.
Great. Great alignment. Nathan, what's your perspective?
First off, love the talks, by the way. It was so enterprisey, and that's definitely a compliment. So it's preaching to the choir on the enterprise. So related to impact, I think you both included connecting to the business. So that top line, bottom line. There's got to be a through line there, whether it's a dotted line or a straight arrow, whatever it is. I think being from a design background, that was a long learned lesson for me, for sure. But to kind of maybe make it a little bit more interesting, definitely connect with the personal. So I think a lot about your like circles of influence, right? And so for me, I start with myself and the designers that I work with. It's really, what are those things that I'm doing that helps me make decisions, right? So practically speaking, when you sit down in the morning, does that fifth iteration or variation help me make a better decision? And that's the impact that you're giving yourself on that given day. And then you think out to the next circle, what about my design or research group? What are the things that I'm doing that help them make better decisions? And I think that empathy kind of comes into play. It's not just understanding your users, but understanding who you're working with. So that circle of impact extends to your group, and then it extends to your division, whether it's horizontal or vertical, extends to your business, extends to your field, but hopefully extends to the world and the people actually using your product. So very much starting at that core of like, what will make a difference for me, and how does that make me make better decisions, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, great answer. And I think the essence is a couple things in my mind. So thank you for that. Don't forget yourself when you're after this, right? So when you talk about impact, it's not only about your customers and your cross-functional teams, but also on yourself. And you got to think about it as circles. So great alignment there. Let's get into the context of enterprise now. So Kirsten, I'm going to start with you. And I got a bunch of questions. Going to write it down because there's so much I need to know from that. So when you think about like strategic partnerships and cross-functional partnerships, as a product leader, can you maybe think of the way you think about landing impact cross-functionally? And maybe if you have an example from your illustrious career on how cross-functional partnerships that you led to an impact in enterprise.
Yes, so first of all, I'm a firm believer in collaboration. When I was back at SAP, the functions were very separated between design. We didn't have research back then. We had product management, engineering, and it was very difficult to get everybody on one page. So to the point, Warren, earlier, building that knowledge network, building those relationships, it goes both ways, right? It goes from the product organization as well. So I have always, when I could, organizationally try to pull people together and try to do this listening exercise first for everybody to have people understand what is my perspective, what is my strategy that I would like to maybe drive, and have then ideation around this, have conversations with everybody, testing it against four main parameters. Basically, what does the market say? Get corporate strategy involved, have market research involved. What does the user say? What does the user need? Have the research that you've been talking about. what is the company vision? It is so important to stick with this as well. And then what is it that differentiates us as a company from our competitors? What do we do so much better? What is our strength? And how can we take that and apply it to the business problem? So I've been working in this framework for quite some time, and it has really built relationships, helped me build relationships, because I need to pull my stakeholders in, because I don't know it all, right? And my team doesn't know it all, and there's so many smart people who have something to say. And I think what this really showed was during COVID.
Yeah.
When I was not at ServiceNow, I was still at SAP at that point in time, but we could pivot very quickly within a group of stakeholders. For example, to use a procurement capability that we had to farm this out to all the schools in the US so that schools could take care of getting lunches for children that the children could not get anymore because they were not physically necessarily coming to school, but that they could do through a drive-through activity. And so we could use the tools to establish supply and demand and make that happen. And that is an impact when you see these kind of impacts happen, and I know ServiceNow has plenty of these impacts as well. That's something that really, goes to the core of what we do.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Kristen. And I can, obviously at SAP I don't have a research organization, but I can vouch for how, and I work very closely, my team works very closely with Kristen, and the level of collaboration, is amazing. And Kirsten actually leads one of our most, I'd say, fastest growing businesses. Yeah. So having that collaboration is key, and research plays a key role. Thank you for being a great partner of that too. So, Nathan, I'm going to get to you now. So when we think about some of what Kirsten touched on, there's always these long-term and short-term needs, be it in a company standpoint, market research, user research. How do you balance that as a design leader within a product development environment? And from your experience, can you think of how you manage that, and maybe an example that you can share with your teams?
Yeah, good question. Over my career, I've definitely kind of addressed and thought about this quite a bit. And I think recently at my current consultancy, we think a lot about horizons. So at McKinsey, it's always things comes in threes too. It's easy for you to kind of keep into your head just three things. So we'll just talk about three time horizons. So one of the kind of ways that you can think about the far future or tomorrow is just think about the horizons that you're designing for and manage your time kind of there within, right? So the furthest out, maybe it's 3 to 5 years. So we think about that quite a lot is what's that 3 to 5 year time horizon? Well, that's probably a lot of sequencing, or it's probably a lot of big boulders that you're trying to kind of put into the right place. It's not screens, right? And so you can maybe spend 20% of your time on that. And then what's that next time horizon? Maybe that's the next release, right? It's not a bug fix, it's not a feature release, but maybe it's a major 1.0 or maybe 2.0 release. So think of that, and then think in the close-in stuff, right? What are those things you need to just knock through the Trello board and check off the box and spend the appropriate amount of time on that. So maybe some of the lesson here is think about time. Think about that in terms of horizons that you're trying to design out to. And then think about it in terms of you or your team's time management. So spend the least amount of time, but it's still very important, on the furthest things out. Spend most of your time actually on the things that you're going to actually execute and that will make a difference in kind of a shorter time period. Also, consultants love 2x2s, so do a 2x2, figure out the things that are quick and easy with high value, and things that are really hard and take a whole lot of time, and then prioritize appropriately. So consultants have never turned down a 2x2, so definitely use that.
It's the first time. Yeah, it's a challenge. Even as a research leader, there's always these short-term and near-term or long-term goals, and when you structure an organization around that and position people, it's always an ongoing challenge, and every company is different. But thank you for sharing that insight.
Yeah, can I quickly add one thing on there? So what I've seen not work from a company standpoint is when you front load innovation or some sort of R&D into a sprint planning, it fails miserably, right? Because sprints are set up to deliver towards an outcome in a very stipulated time period. Innovation or horizon thinking might happen in 2 months, might take longer. And I've seen time and again companies front load it, and that's not created the outcomes that the organizations want, right? So how do you then decouple your innovation track so that it's either running in parallel or adjacent to your execution track, right? I don't think every company is different. The maturity of the company is different. So it really comes down to what you're working with and the constraints, and then figuring out what works in that context.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Sri, coming to you now. As a research leader, we talked about impact and how we think about impact. But as Warren said, a lot of times it's about strategic work. Like, how do you position it strategic? How do you measure it? And every company is different, but I'd love to hear from your broad expertise across both B2B and B2C, small and large size companies. How do you measure the impact of UX research, and how do you think about it?
Yeah, I go back to the maturity model that I've worked at previous companies, which really helped me think about impact for where the company is at. Mm-hmm. Right now, if I think about Circle, we are very early on, right? We are a startup. Yeah. What we measure as successful research is going to be very different for if you're at Meta or ServiceNow or another organization. For us, it's all about, are we setting up the right structures in place so that the key projects are being funded with research, if you will, right? So that's one of the key measures. And I was at Meta, and we talked about a value metric as one of the North Star metrics that we could measure, right? So it really comes down to how do you define value as an organization, right? That is aligned to your mission, vision, and the strategic work that you're doing. There's always going to be some sort of a revenue metric, right, that business cares about, and we all should also care about that. But then what are the experiential metrics that lead up to, or hierarchically that you can pull out from, that either directly or indirectly impacts revenue, right? And that's the metric that you need to start thinking about. And there's a lot of collaboration with DS that you can do. Data science, yeah. And then there's also a lot of collaboration that you can do with PMM, because they, product marketing function, because they always talk about go to market. How do you think about value? How do you position value? And then there's your own work that you can do. And then some triangulation there gets you to thinking about the definition of value and how we can measure it. So.
Yeah, I think the key there is, even in the way Warren presented, you got to talk to your knowledge graph. However you put it, like your solution consultants, your account executives is similar. Like, you have to really look across the board and figure out what value you can drive. A lot of times I've felt that research organizations feel like they're having an impact, but they don't really measure it. And if you don't measure it, you don't even know, right? So it's good insight. Talking about revenue targets, Kirsten. It's always fascinating to me, especially in enterprise, you as a GM, you have revenue targets. You're trying to serve the needs of our customers, and you're a customer-obsessed as a company. How do you balance revenue goals? I'm sure a lot of the folks in the audience have this. And experience needs for customers and users. Like, how do you balance that? Like, how do you optimize for it? And there's no right answer. Go for it.
There is no right answer to this. If I knew this, I wouldn't be sitting here. No. So first of all, yes, we have very aggressive revenue targets, right? This is a growth area for ServiceNow, and we really have big dreams in this space. So we took, again, a very collaborative approach to sit down with all our stakeholders. And you mentioned marketing, for example. So this inner circle, Warren, that you were talking about with everybody, what do we need to do from a product perspective? How do we need to grow the product portfolio? But then that second circle around it, our go-to-market folks, marketing, sellers, solution consultants, everybody. And we looked at what do we need holistically across the organization. Because if I build a great product and the team creates a massively phenomenal user experience, but I don't have go-to-market, I don't have the right messaging, it's not going to sell itself. Yeah. They don't just come because you build it. And so we took some time as part of our summer strategy and other conversations that we have with leadership to try to find that mix, but try to give justice to every area. But I need to at times prioritize as a GM to say, right now I need to put more effort into, or more money into, or more resources into go-to-market, for example, to create the demand so that I can start selling, that I can start generating the revenue that I can then put back into the organization to focus on other areas. So we have that conversation collectively as an organization.
Yeah. It's a tough balance.
It's a very tough balance, and there will always be somebody who gets a little bit hurt. And I think the big thing here is to the topic of buy-in earlier, to explain to everybody as to why we're doing what we're doing, and that oftentimes these are temporary decisions until we see a certain outcome, and then we can shift. And that's what we've been doing, and so far so good.
Well, you're doing it really well here, I can say that. Great answer. And if you look at the B2C side versus B2B, the pressure is really bigger in B2B when it comes to revenue and all of that, right? So it's a completely different ballgame. And relationships, collaboration, the why behind it is so important, and the communication. Proactive communication, so you said the context of the right people is so key. And there's never a right path. It's all case-based. Nathan, I'm going to ask, there's no discussion these days without generative AI being a topic. And I know at McKinsey, you're at the forefront of that from consulting, one of the leading consulting firms. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry from your perspective and McKinsey's perspective with generative AI. And from an enterprise standpoint, what are some of the things that you're really excited about looking ahead, let's say 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, we made it pretty far without saying Gen AI, so I think we should pat ourselves on the back. Yeah, a lot of the management consultancies and tech consultancies have hopped on Gen AI pretty quickly, and again, the dotted or direct line there is just money, right? That's where all the money's at, both from Fortune 500 down to every single startup. So. Consultants go where the money is. I'll be pretty black and white about that. It's pretty Darwinistic in that respect. And so Gen AI is legitimate in that respect. So it's a conversation starter, every single one of our clients. And there's real meat to it, right? So I have the privilege of living through kind of a few paradigm shifts at this point. And AI is a paradigm shift. And you can tell that because every single kind of function within the business, within the enterprise, is talking about it, if not already doing stuff around it. So point one, it's a part of every single conversation. I think point two, and we had a sidebar earlier about this, there's still a lot of skepticism, right? So with great promise comes, I think, kind of valuable skepticism. So everything is in that pilot or POC phase. And I think even at the macro level, people are talking about this as well, which is generative AI has proven that it's valuable, but let's actually see the impact that it's going to bring. And a lot of companies are pulling forward things that are not yet there because of that promise. So I think 2024, 2025, we're going to see that play out. And I don't know if you guys know, but NVIDIA has their earnings tomorrow. And so it really will shift the narrative. They're the picks and shovels of this kind of trend. And it will affect companies like ServiceNow and many others, and affect many of my clients too. So it's going to play out 2024, 2025. If we talk 3 to 5 years down the road, I mean, extremely excited. So I was in college, and that's when Adobe Photoshop launched layers. And for many of you in this room, you'd be like, layers always existed. What are you talking about? But it was an incredible paradigm shift for the tools of a designer, right? Like, I won't get into it. Maybe after we can talk more about this. But this pain and suffering of not having layers. And so I lived through that event, and many, since then. And so the reason I'm really, truly excited about generative AI, especially in the creative and design fields, is because it is an incredible like efficiency that we're going to gain, right? So think of it as a tool. And actually the CEO of Microsoft, they're doing their big conferences, he's a very, very smart man. Sure. And so he had a talk today about, I think it was today, about we should not personify AI. In fact, we shouldn't even call it AI. It is something different than intelligence, right? We're humans, we have intelligence. That's by definition something different than actually what we are creating. And so it goes against the whole like OpenAI personification of the voice. But I think he has a really valid argument here, which is it is something tangibly different, and I view it very much as a tool. And I think in 3 to 5 years, we will see incredibly powerful tools that allow us to be more creative, that allow us to collaborate better, for us to access knowledge much faster, much more effectively, much more in real time. So these cycles will happen faster and faster and faster. How do we keep up? I think generative AI is a huge, huge component of that.
Right. Yeah. Kirsten, I know we're investing. I know you're like eager to talk about that.
I would like to
add,
I would like to add definitely that it now changes how we think about product development. So we have an initiative for our finance and supply chain workflows to say if there's a new capability that's being introduced, be it in the intake process, finance, supply chain, procurement software, finance software touches a lot of users, right? Be it in the intake process or be it other capabilities, can we do this with Gen AI?
Yeah.
And we pass that test and make a decision. It shifts fundamentally, and when I think down the road what I would like to build in the supply chain space, I cannot even see this anymore without Gen AI. I've been like you through a number of, there was no internet when I started. So, dating myself, I had a pager, if you still know what it is. So this, I have the same impression now thinking about the business problems that we can solve much more efficiently going forward and much more user-friendly going forward. There's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and Sri, I'll get to you on your thoughts there, but as a company, we had our annual customer event 2 weeks ago, right? Which we call Knowledge, and our chairman, our president, all our keynotes, everything was about generative AI. So as a company, ServiceNow is investing heavily into that, and we think it is a new direction. And we're also hiring quite extensively in my organization. In fact, we're looking for a leader to lead our generative AI space. It's that like every organization, conversation, everything's about Gen AI. Sri, any thoughts on Gen AI?
Yeah, we were just having a side conversation early on where a couple of years ago it was like everything's smart, right? You got your smart home, smart thermostat. Now, smart homes, you AI everything now, right? That's where the funding is, that's where people are going. I want to give a slightly different view, not on AI, but a parallel, blockchain that's evolving. Since I work on it, I see very similarities between what's happening in blockchain space and its applications to fintech, to AI. Right now, the thinking in blockchain is we can solve all the problems that dollars couldn't, right, or the banking system couldn't, and the universe is so vast and so open, and we think everything is a possibility. I think there comes a time where we realize that, oh, shit, like there are certain problems that could be well solved with blockchain, and it's perfectly suited for that, and there are many that blockchain or even Web3 services won't be able to solve. I think we'll see similar trends in AI. Right now, you're putting AI in everything, and then pretty soon you realize that it's good at some things and it's not, and then those things will stick, and the other ones, I'm sure, there'll be a new tool that we have to deal with or new technology. So,
yeah, it's a good parallel.
Yeah.
A little bit of a segue. I think we had a couple of minutes, and I want to, in 10 minutes or so, I want to make sure we have some questions from online folks. For folks here, the panelists are going to hang out after, so you can stop by and have a conversation and chat more. But for folks online, I want to make sure we take at least a few questions. But before that, we cannot ignore that we're working in a very hybrid environment now. We had the pandemic hit a couple of years. We were like not in offices, and we talk about collaboration and impact. Everything changed. Our mindset changed. Our resistance increased to come back to the office. A lot of companies are like trying to get folks back in. Within each of the functions that you guys lead, from product management, research, or PMing, How do you think about, the future when it comes to RTO, return to office, how the collaboration models will change? What are some of the things we need to watch out for to make sure that we continue to drive the most impact? Whoever wants to go first.
I love this topic.
All right, let's go.
It's been 4 years. I don't know if you recall, but the creators of Basecamp wrote a book called Remote. They did that good 2-3 years before the pandemic hit. And it essentially outlined the value of working remote. And we all know what those are. I don't need a recap, but very interesting that it kind of put the finger on all of these incredible benefits, but really lacked a black swan event to make it happen.
Right.
And then it happened. And I think what we've all figured out, and what I've figured out, is that it's like a barbell approach, right? So for me, particularly for design, working in person earlier in your career, you're going to exponentially learn better and more. And so optimize for that. In the middle, the magic middle, I think working remote fits way more people, way more of the time. And then on the other side, the leadership side, working in person, making difficult decisions together, face to face, is more optimal. Now, I'm just like, that's pure opinion, super subjective, anecdotal evidence to support. But what I might say that's a little bit more valuable here is that it brings to bear different aspects of your personality. And so if you're strong in certain areas and need to work on other areas, use your mode of working to your best, right? And find the place that will accommodate. So again, I still think that we're kind of imbalanced in terms of the employer or the employee having kind of power in the marketplace. We kind of are swinging wildly back and forth at this point. Everyone's fearful of layoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But as an employee, we still have the power to choose where we work. And again, just be really mindful of what context do I excel in? What is the role that I have? Yeah. And is that place, is that employer kind of accommodating of that? And that's how I would choose and focus on. So
Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, I would echo this. I would say I'm very purposeful today, and I ask my team to be very purposeful about being in the office. If we're being told we have to be X number of days in the office, if we're a certain type of employee, then be very purposeful about that and use that for community building, for connections, maybe meet that colleague that you need to create that connection with across the other side of the organization. Do the whiteboarding session, or have the session with your peers about some difficult decisions that may have to be made. So I'm much more intentional when I go into the office, and I make much more of the time of it at this point in time. And that's what I would expect from the team as well.
Yeah, that's good. Leading by example. Sri, anything you want to share?
Our company is fully remote, so I'm just working from home for the last 2 years, and I never thought as a researcher that's going to be very productive, because I always felt like I need to be up on the whiteboard, right, putting Post-its up, bringing the teams together. But believe it or not, it's actually working quite well. It's actually more productive. I think the evolution of technology and the solutions that are at our disposal is helping us make some of that happen. I think the other thing, and we all have a conversation when we meet with friends and so on and so forth, the hybrid, meaning some people going in, some people not going in, creates an interesting dynamic of fear of missing out, right? That's what I'm most worried about. When we have this hybrid culture where, there might be hallway conversations that you're not part of. For us, everything is a meeting, right? Decisions are being made in a meeting. But when this hybrid situation happens, are we, either purposefully or not knowingly creating, some sort of skewness within how decisions are being made and how you're participating in those decisions, right? So something to watch out for.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some questions from the audience. It's an online audience. I'm going to ask that while you think about some final thoughts you want to share. So let that simmer in your minds before we get to that. So there's a question, and I haven't read it, so I'm just going to read it out. So if there's anything crazy, go with me. Thank you for the questions from online. The first one is from Karen. Here's a question. You mentioned marketing and go-to-market being important for revenue goals. How should research be interacting here? So you're going to take first stab at how to interact with product marketing?
Yeah, one of the interesting things with an organization that has different capabilities, but orchestrating to go together to the market, right? So PMM is a function that's on the front lines. Revenue is such a removed and such a top-line goal from a research standpoint. You have to peel the onion back a couple of layers. And I believe as researchers, if you don't collaborate with other functions that are on the front lines, you can misrepresent what you're mentioning, or you can misquote how research is directly impacting revenue. So that's what I meant. I just wanted to bring that clarity on. That's the reason why you're working with other functions that have very similar challenges as you are to prove value to the organization and the metrics that they have, and there is a collective effort that needs to happen across those front lines to think about what those metrics are.
Yeah. I can give a take, at least from my perspective. So my organization here at ServiceNow, we work very closely with the marketing org and corporate strategy. And what we call PMM, what we call here is outbound marketing, so folks who actually touch the customers. A lot of it is, when you think about revenue, it is actually the end goal. And you have to start from top of the funnel, where you actually start building awareness about a product. And once you build engagement, you go down the funnel, and there's that classic marketing funnel. You go through engagement, adoption, et cetera. And so working with marketing is very important as researchers, not only to get a pulse for what the segment, the sample, the population you're really trying to target, but then how do you position messages? How do you continue to go back to them even after product's launched? How do you continue to get a sense of that so that together we can work on the right set of methodologies to continue bringing those insights in, and eventually revenue is going to hit, right? So at least that's my perspective as a research leader, and every organization I've been in, marketing is usually the first person I call and have a conversation with. So I love it. And I went to Kellogg, which is known for marketing. So. Any other thoughts? Otherwise I can go to the next question. Cool, okay. There's another question from Anurag. How do you change research from being a service to being a strategy in a company? What are the steps to make that happen? I'm looking at Nathan or Sri.
I'll say something really quick. I'm not a researcher, but someone that is a researcher said, research is like taking your vitamins, right? So it shouldn't be an acute injury that you're like, oh no, this doesn't work, let's go figure it out. It's something you just do on a regular basis. And so schedule those activities. And a word I'm fond of at my current company is just make it part of the structure, right? It should be structurally integrated into how you create products.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know if this definition makes sense or not. I always thought about research as a skill set and strategy as a mindset. I think you continue to do research. What do you do with that research is strategy for me. So you could present the findings and just say, hey, product, go take this and figure out, how you make things better. Or, like we've talked about, take that, connect the dots, make sure that, the experience lands across the board, across several touch points, across different products, right? That's a mindset that somebody needs to develop. And it's not taught anywhere, right? You have to be engaged with, what's happening with the company and, where the products are going, the impact that research is having or not having, and then evolve that mindset to be able to drive the strategic discussions or be part of the discussions.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'll give you my take, and then we'll get to the final thoughts. So one of my favorite quotes is, strategy without tactics is daydreaming, and tactics without strategy is a nightmare. And this is something that has always stayed with me, and you see companies just going through tactics day to day, one thing to the other, without a really informed strategy. That's a nightmare. But when you think about, oh, I love this thing, bluish, and always thinking about things without really having an execution plan, that's daydreaming. And I think research has a really good role. One of the things we advocate here at ServiceNow is research for the sake of research is literally useless. It has to have a so what to it. What is the implication of that? What are the tactical execution that is going to come after that set of insights are driven? And that's where I think that strategic piece comes in. If you think about companies that have no research, AKA strategy, they're in a nightmare situation. They're just going tactically from day to day without a really overarching vision or a set of steps to go after. So that's how I look at it, as research being a strategic function where we're really bringing that user's mindset, expectations, limitations, hopes, and dreams into the way we build products that can really resonate with them. And so that's where I see research being a very strategic function. And to Nathan's point, it has to be an everyday thought. It has to be an everyday process. So great questions. Thank you for the online audience. So we're getting near to end of the session. I'd love to hear any closing thoughts. Could be anything around enterprise impact, collaboration, whatever you want this audience to take away. Who wants to go first? Sure. Okay.
Seems like I'll put myself out there each time. So, yeah, over my career, and for those of you in the room as well as online, I'm a huge advocate for working in the enterprise, particularly coming from a design background. So, consumers are fickle, right? Think of yourself and your own decisions about what you buy and what you like and what you don't like. It literally changes from this morning to today. And so for me, it's largely an unsolvable problem, right? Consumer products, bless your hearts, but that seems like an exercise in frustration to me. But for the enterprise, you can't get better data from watching people use a product that they need to do their job with. For me, that's a solvable problem. You still get incredible human nature as part of it. People are messy and things happen and you're really surprised by that. Oh, that's a head slapper. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I think the enterprise problems and things that you use as a tool day in and day out is an extraordinarily interesting problem to solve. And again, it's this is super subjective, but it's less fickle in that respect. There's from A to B, how do I get this person from A to B? And so it's entirely auditable, and you can bring a logical methodology to the plate and actually see that improve over time, whether that's project to project, company to company, industry to industry. But as a designer, I really want to understand how my methods and skills grow over time. And I think working within the enterprise and doing that on tools is a really incredible way to do that. Now, we'll caveat this. Your family will not understand what you do for a living. And so that's been a running theme. No one knows what I do for a living. So there's that, too. So think about that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, I can only build on this. So the user in the enterprise is forced to use the systems, right? It's not a choice. You choose the type of phone you want or the apps that you want to use, but in the enterprise, you're being told that's what you need to work with. And there's a lot of ways that users in enterprise will circumvent systems. And that's what we're seeing, for example, here at ServiceNow. What we're solving for is, right, all of these users were saying, yeah, not for me. I will be in spreadsheets, and I will do email, and I'll do other things.
Excel is your
Exactly. Well, Excel is still the greatest enterprise system that has ever been invented, when you believe our customers. But it's just something that, that is a challenge to solve for. And I think there's definitely something happening in the industry in that we've been very tied to transactional systems that record and control what the users are doing. Now we're moving into, with the new technology that we have available, and that's one of the reasons to be at ServiceNow, for example, to build for these spaces, is we're moving much more in a user-centric design. We're moving much more into process orchestration, hiding these complexities from users. Sure. And that's something that we see emerge more and more and more, and it's a fun space to be in.
Yeah. Exciting times for us, for sure.
And my daughters never knew what I was doing either. They thought I was getting paid for making PowerPoints. I was well paid.
That's right. Sri, any final thoughts?
I just want to say you guys are fighting the good fight. Keep it up, pat on the back, right? Enterprise is not easy. It's hard. So really appreciate everything that you guys are doing day in, day out. One thing I'd say, though, is enterprise customers are craving consumer-like experiences, right? So keep that in mind as you push your work forward.
Could not agree more. Round of applause for the panelists. Well, Nathan, Kristen, and Sri, thank you so much for those insights. I wish I had more time. I could have spent more time really talking to you guys, but really appreciate all the insights and responses. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.